Melissa, thanks for being with us today and talking about tips for a more seamless closing.
Well, thanks for having me, and thank you for everybody who's listening out there.
Always.
Certainly, we talk about real estate representation from a legal perspective and how important it is to get a lawyer involved in a timely fashion, because oftentimes we do discover that there are title issues, and this is really legal minutia. That's what I tell my clients.
Legal minutia.
It's like learning a new language, because oftentimes, especially anybody who's a first-time seller, has maybe never heard the words, "we're missing a mortgage discharge." What does that even mean?
Exactly.
So sellers are worried and freaking out, or we tell them there's a statutory lien that was put on the title because a prior owner lived out of state. Again, it sounds freaky, but it's not that big a deal. It's really just a lot of paper pushing and administrative maneuvering to make sure that we're able to clear the title, but that does take time. So it's really critically important that we are retained early in the process so that we have a meaningful opportunity to review the title commitments and clear any issues before the closing.
Quick question. So what does it cost to retain a real estate attorney?
So generally speaking, you're always going to find a range somewhere between the range of $350 to $750, and it really depends what your legal needs are.
Yep.
Because no two sellers are the same.
No.
If you're a regular Rhode Island resident and you're selling locally and you're attending the closing and you don't need an attorney to attend with you, you're going to be on the shorter end of that scale. If, however, you have a number of title issues, you're an out-of-state seller, you're retaining an attorney to go to the closing for you with a power of attorney, you're going to be on the higher end of that scale. So that's why I'm reluctant to ever say, oh, it's always going to be X, because there's a range.
And that's only due at closing. There's no
Correct.
There's no retainer fee, like right up front kind of fee, right?
Generally
It's at that
speaking,
closing.
right, most real estate attorneys are absolutely going to be paid at the transaction when it closes, so you don't have to retain them up front, but there are some exceptions. Again, if you have a very complex situation of probate that has to be cleared up before closing, that may require a retainer. But generally speaking, you just pay for the attorney to do your document preparation, review your numbers with you, and clear your title prior to the closing. At the table is when they get paid.
Okay.
So as a lot of the time, some of the delays I see is a function of not retaining counsel early enough. So, for example, yesterday I got a call from a woman who wants to retain our services to handle her doc prep, and the reason she decided to hire a lawyer is because they're closing on Friday and there's a title issue.
Wow.
So I explained to her that I'd be more than happy to represent her, but that I don't think that it's likely I will have this situation resolved by Friday, because it's just not enough time. You've got to remember we're dealing sometimes with the state or banks, and those processes do require time. So she wasn't thrilled that we looked like we might be having some delays, but unfortunately, since we weren't retained at the time she went under agreement, this is what we're left dealing with.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like this, the sooner the better. As soon as you, in my situation, what I feel is as soon as you're thinking about selling, you should be in contact with an attorney. That's what we tell our clients right off the bat.
Definitely. And certainly once you're under agreement, that is absolutely no later. That time is the time to hire them right away. In fact, some clients will say, you know what, I do remember receiving a letter from a credit card company, or there may have been some not so wonderful news in their past, and now they're worried that perhaps there is a lien on the title, where they will contact us and ask us, as a pre-listing or part of the listing process, can they have a title search completed just to make sure there's not going to be any major title issues? And, if somebody's had a spouse who's passed away, that can cause and will cause a title issue that we have to work out. Again, it's just paperwork, but hiring us early and up front, or any attorney, is really going to be critically important. So a couple of things. Certainly as a seller, again, we're talking this is a new language for you. So you may not know that you have to give us information to order a mortgage payoff or to obtain final water and sewer bills. That is an important transfer of the transaction. And you're working closely with your agent, but also with your attorney to make sure all of those pieces are done and ready, because the last thing you want is to show up on the closing date and realize that you don't have a mortgage payoff or you don't have the correct final billing.
We've seen it.
Yeah. And it's more complicated by the fact that we have oftentimes sellers who are also simultaneously buying. And that is probably the single most stressful thing that I see my clients go through, where they're selling their home at 9 o'clock in the morning and they're buying something at noon the next, that same day or the next day. You guys see it on the front lines as the agents, and certainly you have the logistical constraints, but from a legal perspective, how is all of this working? Because generally speaking, what's happening in those simultaneous sale transactions is that the seller will then use that money for a subsequent purchase. So we need to chase the money, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that the funds are going to be clear and transferred into the account for their subsequent purchase. So one of the services that we offer is to represent them not only as a seller, but then as a buyer, and it really helps to streamline the money chase. And for the client's use, they're contacting one attorney, whether it's for the sale side or the buy side, it's all in the same house.
I would totally agree with that. It's almost like using the realtor that's selling your house or the team that's selling your house to help you buy a house, as long as they're well versed in both subjects, which, a lot of agents pretty much are. As long as that happens, it's good. It streamlines things. Absolutely.
And when you're in a process where you're moving from one house and you're going to be temporarily homeless before you move into your other house, you want to make it as seamless as possible because it is a very, very stressful undertaking. I mean, I've had clients cry. I've had clients yell and scream. I've had clients who are on the verge of mental, breakdowns because it is such a stressful endeavor. And, all I can say is I've never done it, but I can certainly appreciate where they're at with it because we see it every day.
All the time. So, I mean, just to kind of reiterate, so if you're selling a house and buying a house, basically the timing of these closings is so crucial as well. So we want to do your final walkthrough in your house early in the morning. And then we want to go to closing. We need to give the attorneys enough time to make sure that the house is funded, right, by the mortgage company, and that the deed is recorded in the town hall, because you're not going to be able to move forward technically with that other purchase until that's all done, because when you go to buy, your mortgage company giving you that mortgage needs to see that that other deed was recorded, that you no longer own that house. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there's a lot of moving parts there.
Absolutely. And here we are in the brink of coming to the holiday season, which I can hardly believe. But
I know.
There's a lot of time constraints with respect to the town halls. We as the closing and title attorneys really have to be strategic in what time we can close, what the town hall schedules are that will facilitate us to be able to have simultaneous closings. And again, you as a consumer really need to feel comfortable that it's not your agent's role to know the town hall schedule.
Yeah.
You need an attorney at the wheel making sure that all of this is happening and going to be easy breezy for you.
Yeah, and it's really not always easy breezy, but the better the professional, the better team of professionals, the more seamless your transaction is totally going to be. So